Hey, Cardinals fans, welcome back to the Redbird Rundown. I am Matt, joined by Jonathan and Scott. If you're enjoying the show, and we hope you are, please follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Smash that subscribe button on YouTube, and you can find all of our social media links in the show notes to this episode. Be sure to check out all of our other Redbird Rundown content as well. Guys, there is a cornucopia of free stuff from the Redbird Rundown podcast. There's Cardinals on My Time. There is the epic Random Cardinal of the Week series by Scott's brother Jim that has just been a treasure so far. On today's episode, we're going to be breaking down just the small task of what we think are the biggest storylines that are going to make or break the Cardinals season for this year in 2026. These are the narratives that are going to define how this year goes, for better or worse. Jonathan and Scott will be sharing their storylines, and then midway through the episode, we'll jump over to a segment with the legend at C70, Daniel Shoptaw, in which we'll share some more storylines. So, guys, there are just storylines all over the place. Let's start with this. How are you, boys?
I'm fantastic, and I like how you said smash it. You also could just click it, too. Just click the subscribe button. But I like smash, too.
I think what happens is if you hit the mouse button harder, it counts for more followers. So, people, I need to see those broken mouses, okay?
But we also need to respect technology for when the robots eventually do take over. So I'm about to caress the mouse and say please. I'm a big please and thank you to the robots.
Caress the mouse. Wow. I think that's a decent transition to something that happened to me in the showers at Planet Fitness.
Oh no.
Oh yeah.
Oh, drop the link in the comments, boys. Let's go.
Well, okay, so normally the showers at Planet Fitness, at least the way that I think about them, is just a cone of silence. You walk in, you don't talk to anybody, nothing happens. I'm in the shower. I'm not playing anything. I take my headphones out, right? Well, I'm in the shower the other day, and I just hear the sweet tunes of R&B music just carrying over the waves, and somebody in the shower next to me is just rocking out. And then about halfway through his shower, he starts hitting the high notes and singing. I wish I had known the song. I would have harmonized with him. But what do you guys do in my position there?
I am public
Both
locker
of them
rooms
are bum-puzzled.
Oh my gosh, that is, like you said, a cone of silence.
Yeah.
You're in, you're out. Before Jonathan gives you his suggestion, I will say my own locker room story. I try to shower at home as much as possible, so I don't like. That's why I'm up so early, so I don't have to do the public gym and then go straight to work like that. But back in the day when I did that, I did the same type of deal. I just happened to choose the locker that the oldest and most confident person is in the locker room, always right next to me.
Yeah.
And I am head down, quick as possible. Put my phone down on the bench next to me, turn over, and confident man, meaning lack of draws, just sits directly on the phone.
Oh no!
So that phone went into the fire.
Yeah, he cracked that screen. He cracked it.
So, Jonathan,
when he got up,
what do you think?
Did it stick on him when he got up?
He the lack of concern on his face.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is, absolutely nightmare-inducing fuel right there. Matt, what I would do if I was you, I feel like I would have had to have hummed with him or something. I feel like it was an intimate moment, but it would have been nice for you to sleek in. Because if you're the guy washing his hair,
sneak into his shower. I'm not trying to be arrested.
Not physically in the
shower.
Again,
link in the comments.
Right. No, just verbally, right? Because he's in there probably, thinking he's in his own world. Then he hears you. He's probably
in his own world.
Oh, this is great. Finally somebody gets it with me.
Well, listeners, here's what we want. We want your gym stories. Okay, write them in. Redbird Rundown Pod. We can make this a recurring segment if you guys are interested in it, because there's always something weird going on. There really is. Wow. It really is. Speaking of weird stuff going on, this 2026 Cardinals team, we'll see where it goes. We'll see what's going on. We need to get into the big, heavy-hitting storylines of what we think is going to define the season. And Jonathan, why don't you just go ahead and kick us off with your first big storyline?
Okay. So I thought, big picture here, what is the thing I care about the absolute most this season, no matter wins or losses, whatever ends up happening, is who proves that they're a part of the core? Who proves that? So I wrote down 3 names immediately on the position side that I think are a part of it. It's Wynn, it's Herrera. And I put Burley in like italics because I assume so. Just because what are we going to do with him right now? He's a major league hitter. We'll see how he does at first base. And then I wrote down a litany of names as to who I think might be able to prove it. Victor Scott, the second, he has not proved that he can hit at this level yet. He can play the defense. Will he do that? Nolan Gorman, I don't need to say anything else. What's going to happen with him? This is basically his last year to prove it, right? Sajasi, I put him here. It's too early. He hasn't gotten a chance, but this is another guy who could technically prove I am worth something. I need to be a starter. Jordan Walker, again, it's maybe not his last year, but I think he's got to prove something. Ryan Fernandez, here's a pitcher. Here's one I dipped into the pitching side. He was awesome in 23 or 24. Is he going to do it in 25? Nope. Is he going to do it in 26? Maybe. Chris Roycroft. Guy's got all the talent in the freaking world. Can he do it? I just want to see at the end of the season, let's just get the shuffleboard set. Can we be done with it? I said shuffleboard because of curling. That's just all that's been on in my house. It's just waxing.
I just thought you were thinking about Florida and the retired people playing shuffleboard over on the side. That's what I thought.
That's fair. That's also fair too. So there's a bunch of names that I think can prove themselves. Who is going to? And at the end of the year, I'd like to have like a nice list of who I thought proved it and who I thought didn't, so that we can feel good about moving on from those people.
Scott, what do you think about core talk there?
Yeah, I feel like a successful season, regardless, like Jonathan talked about, is not going to be wins and losses. It's getting an answer. And I think we need to get answers on certain guys. And there's others, like Jonathan was mentioning, that it'd just be nice to kind of know which part of the future they're going to be. And if those guys need another year as compared to the Nolan Gormans and Jordan Walkers, who maybe it is that 1 year, but at least get an answer on, I would say 60% of your starting lineup and pitching staff, I think would be a good way to go, as well, getting an idea for what you have in the future as well.
And I just wanted to add, these guys that I put in this list of who can prove it are all on separate timelines, right? Like if Vic doesn't hit this year, that doesn't mean we should jettison him out of the spacecraft here. Just, it's okay. I just think there are a couple that are worse off, right? That have less time, some that have more. It just is going to be interesting to see. Scott, I just got to mention, whenever I said Roycroft, I don't know if it was a twitch or you just immediately started shaking your head. You're just not a believer in our buddy Chris.
I love the fact that he's like 6'12" and has that incredible like release point and all the movement on his pitches. But I just think back to watching him pitch while in the hospital while my wife is giving birth to our youngest. Not like anything bad, just typical labor thing where I'm there eating the dad meal and she's over there just doing her thing,
doing actual work,
doing
stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel bad eating, but like they're forcing me to. And I just think about just watching him throw, and the amount of times it just seemed like a very consistent miss out of the zone, and he didn't really improve much. It looked like in AAA with the command, and if he's going to be a reliever, which is his way to maximize his 6'8" frame, is to actually be able to find the strike zone with that movement, because I mean those leverage relievers, the guys that can't find it, don't stick around.
What is interesting to me about this core talk before you go, Scott, is I feel so much more pressure just from the way that I view this organization on the player side than I do the pitching side, because I think I feel that way because there's less in the pipeline coming on the player side besides Weatherholt, and I am excited about Josh Baez. I just feel like on the pitching side, there is just this stable of guys that are headed this direction. So it really feels like some stress and some pressure on the Scotts and the Gormans and the Walkers, and like they really have to do this. Otherwise, we don't really have a backup plan. I'm sure there will be one when there needs to be one, but that's just kind of how I feel about that at the moment.
Yeah,
Scott, why don't you give us your first storyline?
Okay. So you kind of talking about the pitching that are coming up. So I was talking about health as just a storyline, but I'm talking more from the beginning of spring training to kind of the midway point to see what we have. And I'm not looking at the position player side where you were. I'm talking about the health of the pitching, but mainly because I pointed this out on Twitter last week when we talked about the Eshan news, is that only John King got hurt on the major league roster last year, but 10 different pitchers in the minor league system missed extensive time with injuries, including multiple Tommy Johns and season-ending surgeries. So I'm not concerned. I just want to see if those continue to pop up. When I was on Viva Alberto's with Jeff Jones, I had asked that, and he's like, "Well, think about as 10 guys were going to get injured last year, regardless. It just happened that all 10 guys happened to be at the minor league level, where you know." Previously, if it was 5 guys at the major league level, 5 guys at the minor league level, it's still 10 guys. So,
Right.
was it just the luck of the draw, flip of the coin? It happened to be that. I don't know, but we have seen their pitching development switch towards that high velocity as opposed to that pitch to contact, which I'm glad. I don't want to see that, those soft hit balls that Miles Michaelis gave up that somehow also clear the fence. If you guys saw him get absolutely annihilated in Nationals camp yesterday, but
Yeah, I did not.
I'm
That doesn't surprise me.
interested to see how the uptick in stuff affects the long-term health of those prospects.
I don't wish injury on anybody's UCL, but of the 10, that Jeff Jones was referring to there, I could have subbed out some names, and you might have said one of them. No shot specifically at anybody, but boy, let's protect those young ones.
Well, as a Tommy John survivor, I can point that out.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought about the health, and it kind of plays into mine here in a minute, but that's a really scary thing to think right now because we don't really have like a ton of ready-made dudes. We have a couple, more than we had last year, I ought to say. Last year, it was literally like we were looking into the stands, who's gonna be able to come in and fill innings if we need to. So we have a few guys now that could do that, but I'm more afraid of the young dudes getting hurt, right? Like you've said here. I know you mentioned some of the dudes in the starting rotation, but I thought I saw where the dude we got from the Sonny Gray trade was also hurt. Didn't you mention that, Scott?
Brandon Clark.
Brandon Clark. Yeah, so that was kind of when I brought it up, that Brandon Clark had the aneurysm in his shoulder or something, so he's out until at least June. And he was supposed to be the highest upside. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll get into mine because I think it plays right into it.
Go ahead.
Scott, for yours is that does the rotation hold or derail the season? Now, I'm not talking about specifically just injuries, but I think that also plays a part into it. But I listed all of the starters here. So we have Liberatore, who I assume will be the opening day guy. Scott, you mentioned last week they're kind of hyping him up from like a marketing and PR standpoint. I can't imagine they're going to do all of that. He takes the first spring start and then doesn't take the first start at Busch. So I just assume he's going to do that. But can he sustain a full year? Last year, he was like petering out in the middle of the year. Like he had some weird fatigue. Is he going to be able to make it? Palante has like the most season on a Cardinal player right now, which is a horrifying sentence to say.
What do you think the seasoning on Palante is? What is the worst seasoning?
Vanilla.
Vanilla.
Wow.
But I'm just meaning because it's just like you know what you're getting. But I also don't mean that in a negative to him because I do think he's a fun personality, and we heard about like how he's kind of he got teased in the clubhouse. But I didn't mean that in a bad way. I just meant as a pitcher.
I like how you said like something real, and my mind went to like ground up roadkill and dung beetle juice or something crazy. So thanks for going with vanilla.
Dung beetle juice, sprinkle it. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, Jonathan, that's perfect.
So what is Palante even gonna be? We were clamoring for him to maybe be out of the rotation because he was horrific last year, but he's proven that he can do it, and his underlying advanced metrics prove that he might be okay. Dustin May, complete question mark. Is he going to be able to string together literally anything? I don't know. I think he has the chance to, but he's coming back from injury and hasn't proven sustainability. McGreevy is the surest shot in the whole rotation, but what is he? Is he a mid-fours guy? We have no clue what he's going to ultimately be. And then the fifth guy, we literally don't know who the fifth guy is. Is it Leahy? Is it Fitz? Is it Dobbins? There's just a lot of questions, and I've seen people debating, is this rotation better than it was last year? And I think that the answer is likely yes if you just remove and replace Michaelis's innings and Fetty's innings. But it's replacing them with guys that are complete question marks. So this kind of scares me that if this rotation is decent or it holds together, I think we'll be okay and we'll meet our mark probably or a little bit higher for our win total. If they fall apart, I am horrified at what might happen.
What do you guys think we want out of this? I don't want to lose games, but this draft is supposed to be incredible. And for us to gather one more top draft pick, one more set of top draft picks at the top of each round might be helpful. Am I crazy in thinking that like if it derails, again, not that that's what we want, but that's not the worst outcome in the world?
I would say derailing, and then but Derailing to me would be having 7 different starters getting 120 innings or something like that, because that means either that one guy got an extended run and couldn't handle it, or, got a little bit of banged up here and there. But that also means that the other guys had to step up. And whether that results in those growing pains of a starting rotation and shortened starts and guys figuring it out, and it turns in, I never vouch for tanking. I never want my team to lose. I'm going to cheer for them every single game. But if it ends up being that towards that long-term plan of, build through the draft, and if there's, how that works, I'm okay with it, as long as it means that guys are still getting opportunity and they're not derailing it in the fact of signing Kyle Gibson to take starts.
It is interesting, Matt, because you're basically saying your definition of derail is maybe slightly different. How it's not really derail. I think the Cardinals are probably going to prioritize development and whatever they have over wins. I think that they would quietly say that, and out loud they're going to say we're not going to concede anything. And I do believe that they're not going to concede things, but I don't think they are. Obviously, they're not going to show up and be like, "All right, boys, who wants to win on us today?" But I do think from my derail, like the way I'm looking at it was, to Scott's point, if we have a bunch of dudes that just kind of come through here, it scares me that none of the aforementioned guys stuck at all. And I think that it tells us something, but it's also like, wow, this rotation's in disarray, and these other guys we're accumulating these trades are not ready.
I think that's entirely possible, which is why I can't believe how many times we've said the word derail and rail here. I'm just going to do it some more. Derailing kind of feels like the rail to me. It's like the whole season is one big tryout kind of. I know it's not that, and I know that we'll be more successful. I think we'll beat the mid 60s wins projections. I think we'll beat those things, but I don't know. This is just such a different plan than what we're used to that it will be really interesting to see how it plays out. Scott, I think you're up. Do you have another storyline for us?
Yeah, and I'll say, Jonathan, one of those people you saw comparing the rotation last year was me on Viva Alberto's. I'm currently in the middle of a comparing the Cardinals weekly segment. So my first week was the starting rotation comparing that to last year. That is out by the time that you see this, is now the comparing the catching and what it means that we're gonna get, which takes me to my second point, halfway to my talking point, and my one is stolen bases. And I mean from both behind the plate and with our catchers, whoever that's going to be. The Cardinals were 20th in the league in stolen bases last year with a whopping 89. And then you break down where that comes from. Most of it's Victor Scott, where that shows to kind of how the team was built. They still had, the Nolan Arenados and, Wilson Contreras, the guys that aren't going to be typically running. But with the young core that they're supposed to be having and the athletes we're supposed to be having coming up, I need to see just more aggressiveness and uptick in the stolen bases, because this team, as we've talked about, is not going to be the one that has the power to make a difference. But the base running is also going to help us be excited to watch the team, because something can happen that's electric whenever somebody reaches base. Reaching base is obviously another different topic, but just needing to see Mason Wynn running more. Victor Scott, he set his mark at 70. Well, again, the team got 89 last year. So if he hit 70, that's an unbelievable boost for him and the team. But from the other side of it, I need to look at stolen bases from our catchers, because they allowed, hang on, I had this pulled up. They allowed the 10th most stolen bases. And that's with saying that Pedro Pages was this stellar defensive catcher. When you look at it and it's like, okay, he can catch the ball and he can block the ball, I guess, according to Baseball Savant and, those underlying statistics. But when you measure the bat, which again, you can check out on Viva Alberto's, compared to what Ivan Herrera, Matt, we can talk about this. I know you're against Ivan Herrera gearing up, but when you take what the value is behind the plate to what you can get at the plate, I just need to see a little bit more base running control from our catchers. And if Pages and Herrera are near similar in caught stealing percentage, I don't see the reason that you would still stick Pages behind the plate if Herrera is still putting up a 120, 130, WRC plus. I just need to see how they're going to control the running game because it also got unwatchable at times. Number one, watching Herrera throw, but we're supposed to see if the arm injury or the arm surgery helped. But we also don't have all the guys, to bring up Miles Michaelis one more time, throwing 89 miles an hour with the leg lift that takes a year and a half. So I could steal second base on him. So the catchers didn't really have a chance. I think we're actually going to get a real view on what the catchers can do behind the plate, which is going to bode well for Herrera to stick behind the plate for 2 to 3 days a week.
Jonathan, what do you make of stolen bases, catching?
Yeah, I mean, I want to steal bases. You look at a team that steals a ton of bases, it's the Brewers, and they're really fun to watch.
I was going to say, it was going to hurt me, but I was going to bring up the Brewers here because we may have to copy that model.
They're really fun to watch. They get on base and they steal a ton. All of their guys, minus save like a few of them, can steal, and that's exciting no matter what happens. And it puts pressure on the pitcher to think about something else, and it puts pressure on the backstop to think I gotta quell all of this running on me. And we just could not do that. We could not do it. And Pages, to his credit, you're right. A lot of these guys, their windup was so long. These guys have a huge jump. There's nothing that they can do. And Herrera stepping into that, I mean, we're going to have to see, but he might get slaughtered back there. You know, how much of an increase can we expect in 4 months from a guy's throwing arm that he did in entire last year? You know, I don't expect it to be some monumental difference. So I would love to see more stolen bases. I'm still a little apprehensive on saying that we can throw more people out.
We may have to win some of these games on the margins, and these are important margins right here. You know, taking the extra base, getting yourself in a scoring position off of walks and singles, that's really important.
Well, we haven't seen Jimmy Crooks really play defense that long.
The tank commander.
Exactly, just absolutely swinging those howitzers around. Can he do it? Could he, be a plus average hitter and throw guys out? I mean, I know he did in the minor leagues. He had a really nice caught stealing rate. Maybe he's just the answer back there. And I know we're talking Herrera, we're talking Pages, but Jimmy might just do it. So.
Well, and looking at these prospects, a lot of them are graded as above average fielders. I mean, even when you go down further to Bernal, who just won the Gold Glove for the minor league, that's absolutely
true.
Exciting. He's thrown out something like 47 or 50% of base runners in the minor leagues. Like, that's unbelievable. And then you got Reinel, who's not just going to be that bopper. He's also projecting as a power hitting, but also well fielding catcher. But then we also can't discredit what Molina being in camp. Yadi's around more than he's been. I don't believe he said he's going to be around full season like we were hoping, and when they brought him back on, but he's going to be around for a few series. And this is an important year when all your catchers are under the age of 25 or 26 and all supposed to be a major league caliber player. I don't think we can discredit Yadi being around that and just a jump along with the health. So I'm excited for the catching group as a whole, but just I got to see somebody be able to throw down to second base.
All right, Jonathan, before we go to our interview with Daniel Shoptaw, why don't you round us out quickly with one more storyline here?
Scott, yours are just flowing right into mine because I just have in all caps defensive identity. What is it? We have obviously some gold glovers or potential gold glovers up the middle. Wynn and Scott are insane, right? They're both amazing defenders. I believe Weatherholt, we're assuming he plays second base, is going to be really strong. So up the middle, you feel pretty good. Third base feels like a traffic cone at times. That scares me. That's a really premium position. First base, I know I've talked highly about Burley. Can he really do it? We're going to see. I mean, I'm not saying that Contreras was a stone wall over there, but Goldschmidt was good for many years, and, Contreras kind of filled in admirably. Is Burley going to be just a cliff? I don't know. Left field and right field, Newt is still walking on the moon, apparently, down in Jupiter with his anti-gravity thing. Is he going to be healthy enough to play premium defense? Is Walker still going to be out there on his, Matt, I think you said one time over the offseason, like he was just on a journey out there in the wilderness. Is he going to be okay?
I gave him those Spider-Man web canisters now, though. He's going to be fine. Yeah.
And then you just talked about catching people stealing with Herrera behind the plate. I just went around the diamond quickly, and I'm about 60% okay with what I just said. I'm just curious what happens, because watching from a fan perspective, a bunch of errors and gaffes out there is kind of tough, and I hope that we don't have that. And I wonder everybody's always talking about the Cardinal way, like being solid on defense, running the bases. Well, let's not forget about the defense. There's some premium positions that we're switching players on. Let's see what that looks like.
Scott is a former pitcher. Talk defense for us, huh?
Well, I threw 90 poo, so I really relied on my defense, but unfortunately, guys also relied on launch angle at the plate and launch angle to the moon.
Huh.
Nobody can catch that. So yeah, I can't speak to defense because I really didn't give my defense a chance because I was too busy getting whiplash from watching all the balls go from my head. But no, it does make a difference when you have especially guys like Palante and that who are going to be pitching to contact that they need to have that valuable defense behind them, especially with Nolan Gorman. We're going to see where he's going to play and how he handles it.
It's just like, what are we going to hang our hat on? The easiest thing to hang your hat on is like power hitting, a bashing lineup. I don't know that we're going to grow that this year. So can we hang our hat on some of this base running defense, win on the margins? I think that is a more difficult path to success. But I mean, Jonathan, you've already said the organization that's done it is the Brewers, right? That is their advantage along with their pitching. And so could we grow that in St. Louis? It'd be amazing to grow some power hitters, but if we can grow that, I think we might be in good shape. When we return after a short break, you will hear legendary Cardinal on Twitter at C70 Daniel Shoptaw.
All right, we are here today with our special guest, none other than, drumroll please, Daniel Shoptaw, Mr. C70 on Twitter, if you know him there. And he is the host of the Meet Me at Musial podcast. Daniel, it is so nice to have you here, man. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I appreciate y'all inviting me in and looking forward to having some good conversations.
Yeah, well, Daniel, before we were recording, was talking about a bunch of Star Wars stuff. So we'll spare you there, but boy, we could have spoken for a lot longer before this.
I feel a spinoff pod coming. Really, I feel like it's there. I feel the force, through this Wi-Fi connection. I feel it.
Yeah, a number of years ago, we had a one on the Beat Musial feed. We would do an occasional Star Wars podcast. It's been a while. Maybe we need to bring it back.
Ooh, well, you got two contributors that would love to help you with that there.
I'll remember
Anytime.
That's right.
Anytime.
All right, Daniel, so we're getting into a couple of storyline narratives for the 2026 season. I'm not sure if you know this, but it might be a little bit of a different season for us this year as opposed to years past. I know that's a shock. So we thought, well, what the heck? Why don't we look at this from a storyline perspective? So we've asked Daniel to come with 2 or 3 different story narratives. Matt's going to also pitch in on this segment, but Daniel, we'll just hop right into it. Let's get to your first storyline narrative for 2026. What do you see as, I won't say most important, but maybe what is important for 2026 for you in your eyes?
I think probably the most important thing when you're looking at what's on the field this year is the development of Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. I mean, these guys are in the make or break year. They have to do something. And if they take that step, this rebuild goes a lot quicker than if they don't.
That's funny because I have them like kind of in an adjacent storyline that I'm sure I'll get to in a second. But what I wrote down in my notes is, will the paddles work on the careers of Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman? Because I feel like it's at this sad place that they're just kind of, they're on the table and we need to clear, we need to get really something going with these guys. And I don't know if you feel this way, Daniel. I kind of feel like this is the last ride for both of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
If they struggle again, I just don't know that I see us re-upping this continuously. So I think that's a great one just to hit right off the bat. This is it for these guys.
Yeah, I think Jordan Walker's probably got a little bit more leeway on that because he is a little bit younger. He is, there's been those discussions about, a tall guy like him taking a little more time to develop, but he's got to at least show some steps this year. And, Nolan Gorman being, he's what, 1 year, 2 years from free agency. I mean, if he doesn't do it this year, I don't know that they would non-tender him this winter, but I think it would be on the table.
Yeah, and Walker, I think you've said the point I was going to make was he's so much younger. It would be hard for me to believe that we would give up on someone who's, 23, 24, but I don't know. He's been really bad the last couple of years. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is, his last ride, but I just want to see incremental progress from him. Gorman, I feel like it needs to be like you need to hit 25 home runs. Like, you need to show me something. If Walker just gives me a little bit of hope, I feel like it's when you pull like the 3-wood out of the bag and you finally hit a shot right and you're like, I know how to hit a 3-wood now, but you never do it again.
Yeah.
I need that with Walker, just like something to bring me back, not hitting 210, not having a minus WAR season. Just give me something a little bit better,
Yeah, Daniel, what is your confidence just just between those two guys, do you have better feelings about one of them versus the other going into this?
I mean, I'm a little bit over Nolan Gorman. I hate to say it, just because, and it's probably is a little bit of, it's not quite prospect fatigue, but it's that same type of thing, right? We've had him around for 4 or 5 years. It hasn't ever clicked. When is it going to? Now, if he comes out and hits 40 home runs this year, everybody's got Gormania, right? So, but if I think that, if I was going to pick one of the two to actually make that step, I think it would be Jordan Walker because of the age, because his game has a little bit more variety to it. I feel like Nolan Gorman is boom or bust, right?
Yeah.
But Walker, if he's good, should have a little bit more hit in there. So I think that's who I would go with. What about y'all?
Yeah, Jonathan, go ahead. How are you? Do you have confidence in either of them?
Well, you said Gormania. That was, I don't know why. I've never thought of that. I really like that.
Oh, that's
makes a lot
the
of
Cardinals
sense to
off
me.
day, guys. I can't take credit for that one. So.
Okay, I like that.
We've been making the joke
yeah.
that it's the Gorm, like from Andor, just to continue in the Star Wars
It's been
stuff.
the Gorman massacre is what it's been.
Yes,
so,
okay.
yeah.
Matt, to answer your question, I want it to be Walker. I want him to be the one who does it. I really kind of think knee-jerk here, it's a coin flip. We've seen them both do it in short flashes. Walker longer, 2023, his rookie season, 23, he was like really pretty solid. We thought we had a guy, fell off the planet in 24, and then like glitched through the map in Halo in 2025. Like he's just gone forever. So I want to say Walker, but they both have just done it in streaks. So I'm just going to stick with Walker and just put it out there and hope it happens.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yep. Matt, let's hear yours. You have one for us?
Yeah, I'm so interested to see if Cardinals fans are actually with this shift and change. You hinted off the bat, right off the top of the segment. And it really comes from two conversations I thought were kind of interesting that I had. Now, granted, this feels a little bit like the New York Times going to one diner and talking to a few diners and explaining our entire country. You know what I mean? So I had two conversations. Congratulations.
Yeah.
But I had a pretty engaged Cardinals fan at church the other day tell me that they were thinking about, as a teaching group at her school, going to an all-inclusive game. And she said it was going to be $125. And she said out loud in the meeting, $125 for this no-name team?
Ooh.
And this is a woman who is pretty engaged with the team. And then today I was talking with some guys at work, and there's just a lot of concern. So I feel like the ball knowers, and probably all three people on this podcast, we understand why this is happening and are supportive of it in a long-term kind of sense, but I am fascinated to see. I mean, Busch Stadium has already been a ghost town the last 2 years. Does it get to catastrophic levels this year? I'm really, really interested to see this huge fan base and how they react to this, because, Jonathan, you're right. This is very different than what we've seen in the past.
That's an interesting point. And Daniel, I don't know how many games you get to go to like, per year, or if you're close in the area, but our family went last year, and this is the first year I've been to a game that really took me back. I was like, wow, I cannot believe that this is what it looks like here in this stadium. It feels like you can hear the grunting from the mound as opposed to just the ambient crowd noise. So, Matt, that's an interesting one for sure. Is opening day going to be a ghost town? I feel like that'd be kind of embarrassing. I don't know why I feel that way, but
I think it'll be full, but I'm really worried about, others.
Yeah, Daniel, what do you think about that one?
I think it's legitimate. I mean, I think if you look at, I've been a little bit surprised that on Twitter and that kind of stuff, it's been more accepted, because it has been, hey, we've picked a direction. These are young guys. These are some interesting guys, exciting guys to see. Weatherholtz, to see Wynn, Herrera. There are a lot of interesting players on this team. Not as many in the pitching staff, which is a problem, but we'll, we're not going to talk about that. But then again, and I don't go on the Facebook forums because that's just insanity. But when you see people talk about what they're coming out, the people that were just ripping the team because they traded Donovan, even though, we knew that Donovan needed to go, or had at least had a great chance of bringing stuff back. So I think you're right. There is that tension between that casual fan base that wants to win every year, but doesn't really think about the mechanics of it, and some people that are a little bit more in tune, that understand where the Cardinals are in their cycle and what they're doing to get it back. I think, like I said, I only get to one game usually a year when the Cardinals have their blogger day. And so this year it was the Dodgers were in town. So, it was fairly full. But it wasn't as full as it has been. It's still, you could see the empty seats and you could see that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think this year opening day will be big. The Arizona
Cubs
series, the Cubs series, the Seattle's. I think Seattle comes into town. When those kind of guys can come back, that's going to be big. Occasional here and there bobblehead days or something like that, and the promotion staff may have to work overtime. But
For sure.
yeah. But I don't think it'll be. We're not going to be Pittsburgh or Miami or anything like. It's not going to be where you can buy a whole section of seats and just sit there by yourself. It's just going to be low for St. Louis standards.
To your point, I have been kind of heartened with some of the more hardcore fans have been more accepting and open to this than I thought. I think that speaks well of them, because I do think that Bloom and his staff have been pretty forward about what we're doing, why we're doing it. It's more clear than Mozeliak had been, in the past decade or so. But I just have no real way of gauging what the normie kind of fans are going to do until you really see it, because there's no Arenado, right? They're just not that many big names on this team. And so it's interesting from a finances perspective. Does this impact our ability down the road to get, potential free agents? So I really don't know. And so that's why it's so interesting to me, because I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be, and you're right. I think this will be an impact, because we know the TV's already taken a hit with, from what it was 2 years ago to what it is now. We know that the fans aren't going to be, and even if they have fans coming into the stands, it's going to be on, $5 ticket days and things like that, where it's probably not going to bring in the revenue that you would normally get. And so, I think at a certain point in time, I think that this team's going to have to win cheap for a while. And once they start to win and people start coming back, that's going to give the DeWitts a little bit more confidence that they can go out and spend for a free agent that needs to get over the top, versus doing that when it's still, half full.
Right. I've seen a lot of people, kind of some commentary behind, Heim is going to treat this exactly like the Rays. Well, the Rays literally won't spend money. Like, they actively trade their guys before they have to pay them, which is kind of I don't want to say heartless, but that's the only word that comes to my mind. Like, you attach to a guy, he's still good, but then you're the Rays, so you can't pay him. I don't believe the Cardinals will do that. I believe that once you get to this ground floor, if Donovan was on a different timeline, we don't trade him to the Mariners. You would just extend him and continue him on. He's still a good player, right? So I think if you take that kind of attitude and you do try to build it from winning cheap, that really is interesting. I like the way you said win cheap, because it's going to be cheap. Right, we're not going to spend on
figure out how to win cheap in my life, just my personal life. Yeah, yes. I like that phrasing a lot. Hey, honey, we're going to win cheap today.
We got to win cheap. That's right. You can win cheap. You can win when you spend. That's exactly right. I also wonder too. You guys were saying this, and it sparked another thing. People liked to watch fun baseball, right? And I heard a Cincinnati Reds fan not that long ago talk about how they have not been a perennial playoff team the past couple of years, even though they did make the wild card this last year. A lot of people have been attending because Ellie De La Cruz is fun, and there's a new young team that's fun. And I wonder if some of these guys will attract fans. I know they thought about that last year. They tried to market the younger guys. Well, this year, that's all there is. Right? So maybe if it's a fun brand of baseball, more stolen bases, slapping the ball around, playing solid defense, people will watch just because it's fun.
Well, you think about how revered the 80s teams still are, right? In St. Louis,
sure, yeah,
everything is the 80s team. Now, granted, your generation, and I can say that because this shirt is older than you are, but, it's probably not as much. But there's still that deep thing. And if you brought that, hit tall everywhere and steal bases, and, you'd have to have good pitching to go with that. But, if you bring that, in theory, people would say, hey, yeah, I like that kind of baseball. I'm going to go out and watch it. Now, again, I think in this day and age, you still got to have some home runs to do that. And I don't know that they're going to do that.
We may not be able to throw the ball over the fence from home plate this year.
Yeah.
We may be struggling that in. All right, Daniel, let's go back to you. Do you have another one for us? Another storyline?
Yeah, I think the other one is going to be how well do players like Dustin May, Ryan Senek, all those guys, even JoJo Romero, if he's still around, Lars Nootbaar, if he's still here, how good are they going to play in the first half to see if they can be trade bait? in the at the trade deadline. What can they bring back? Because this rebuild isn't over, right? I mean, they're going to continue to need to put talent in there, and to get either young prospects. Well, it'd have to be, at that time you're going to be getting some, 2 or 3, either pitching prospects or whatever for, a Dustin May, if he pitches the way he can, right, that he has in the past.
Sure.
He's a huge steal at the trade deadline for a team that is trying to, needs another starter. So I think that's the kind of thing that to watch those guys and see if they're going to have the season that we hope they have, or a season that maybe they've had in the past that isn't quite as great.
That's something I've been mulling here recently, and I love the way you said that, because I think we all kind of have this internal locus that the rebuild is done.
Mm-hmm.
But just because of the way that we have competed for so long as the capital C Cardinals, but we have no evidence that Bloom wouldn't see what happens this year and then just take another bite out of that and continue it. And I'll be honest, I would be a little bit surprised if we did that. But I think that is interesting to talk about, and I haven't heard very many people saying things like that yet. This does not mean that this sell-off rebuild kind of thing is over. I mean, to your point earlier, if Gorman and Walker don't succeed, we've got to turn them over and get some new blood in here. So I think that's really fascinating to think about.
Do you think that would irritate some of the fan base even further? I know we were just talking about that, like, how could you trade these guys? I'm like, oh, just hold on, folks. It may not be done. Right. So I wonder how you'd message that. But, it makes sense maybe more at the trade deadline. There's a real delineation between buyers and sellers that I think people grasp onto, that if you're not doing well, you're a seller. And we've done it the past kind of 2 years, but last year for sure. And you didn't really hear much outcry whenever we shipped out, Mats and some of these other rental type guys. People just kind of understood that. So that's a good one. And I hope Dustin May has a really good season. It seems like he seems to be a good guy. Everything come out of spring training. He's watching Liberatore starts. It seems like a good place for him to kind of rebuild things. And it would be awesome if he's the Dodgers Dustin May. Oh boy, we got something, don't we?
Yeah. And I mean, even if there's rebuild starts to take, you've got to continue to refresh that that minor league system, because that's what the problem has been over the last little bit. They let it go fallow. And so even now, granted, if the Cardinals somehow are, 90, in the wild card hunt at the All-Star break, maybe things are different, but that's probably not going to happen. So, you've got to be able to turn that and continue to take those shots so that at some point in time, you've got enough guys to then make that run.
I totally agree. Matt, do you have another one for us? Another storyline?
I do. And I'm glad that Daniel just mentioned the pitching and the prospects, because that is in a year that's about transition. And we banished the word runway. We're done with that. But in a transitional type season, I am going to be fascinated to see how far they push some of these pitching prospects that were both already in the organization and guys that they have picked up. I wrote down some names, and guys, I was writing for like 15 minutes.
Oh, that's great.
Doyle, Franklin, Clark, Henderson, Senja, Davis, Jerpy, Matthews, Hintz. I mean, there are just 9 names that I ripped off without having to go to MLB.com's pipeline to figure out what's. So it is both incredibly exciting. I firmly believe that of those 9 names, 5 of those, there is a rotation in there somewhere. And so it's just very interesting to me to see the couple of them that are at Memphis. Do we see them in St. Louis? And then in the low minors, how aggressively do we push these guys up? Oh my gosh, I just forgot about Yoiker Fajardo. There's 10 or 12 legitimate pitching prospects, and that's kind of amazing. It doesn't do much for the normie fans, but I'm just fascinated to see how that's going to work.
Brandon Clark. I just wanted to add that too.
Did I not write his? I thought I said Clark, but either way.
Well, and then you've got, I mean, they're not as exciting, but you've got Dobbins and Fitz, right? That are there, ready to go, that are the depth pieces, the 4th or 5 starter types that you're going to need. So they're not as exciting as the other ones. And you're right. That's really interesting to see how far, where will Liam Doyle start? Will he start, back at single A, or will they go ahead and have him at Springfield? Will he see Memphis this year? What about Quinn Matthews? I mean, a guy that's kind of getting overshadowed by everything because he had a rough year last year. But this time in 2025, we're talking about him maybe making the team out of spring training and, or he's the next man up. It didn't work out that way, but if he can develop, he could be right back to that spot.
Listen,
Well,
I just want to say he would not have been worse than Michaelis last year, so we should have just done it,
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Jonathan, go
the
ahead.
Nationals. No, they got an ace over there now.
Oh,
You know
the
that.
Nationals. Oh, gosh.
No, I was just going to say that you talk about Quinn Matthews and how he's sort of overlooked, and it's like, how fast are we going to push these guys? And I think Heim, in his past runs at the Red Sox, the Rays, has been pretty cautious with rising people through the ranks. And I don't think that that's a bad, knee-jerk reaction. I don't think that's a bad way to live in this world, is to just let these guys naturally do it. The thing is, though, there are so many of them that you can only have so many in these positions. Like, we are stockpiling these guys left and right at a rate in which I don't think we've seen in some time. So there's a chance, too. Like last year in Double-A team was amazing. I mean, I can't remember the record off the top of my head, but I think they won their championship and had a really high winning percentage. You may see that up and down the minor league system because pitching will win these things. And I know Andy always is ripping on Heim for not getting some bats or outfield power or somebody who can swing the lumber. Well, if there is some kind of gold in Major League Baseball, it is young pitching talent and people who can actually throw innings that are cheap. Heim is so smart for doing this. So, Matt, that's something I agree with you on that one. That's one I'm kind of looking at is I'm going to be looking at the box scores in single A, high A, double A, triple A every day because I want to see what these guys are doing because that is the hope, the future, everything is down there.
Well, and I was listening to, the Walton and Reese podcast not 2 or 3 weeks ago. They were talking about trying to set the rotations for all the different levels. There were too many pitchers. I mean, they really couldn't. They were like, okay, well, there's like 9 pitchers for double A and like 10 pitchers for high A. It's like, now some of these guys are not going to pan out. Some are going to get hurt. Some are going to become relievers. But right now, if you've got all that, the odds of you getting 1 or 2 or 3 really good ones is a lot higher.
This whole conversation just continuously reminds me of the NBA, and they talk about like the tanking and getting the bites at the apple. It's like that Bloom has – now, we had some of it in the organization already, but it's like Bloom has added 3 or 4 high lottery picks. And again, Daniel, I think you're spot on. Not all of these guys are going to make it, but I think we have so many bites at the apple here. Sooner or later, we are going to land a bushel in St. Louis because there's just too many things coming for it all to fail. It is going to be a different franchise here. It's just going to take, probably that 2 or 3 years to really get this established and going.
With 5 or 6 more picks in the top 100 in the draft coming up in the summer.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, the minor league system's just spilling over the top with guys here.
Well, and that was my third one. So you're stealing it from me, but it was the development in the draft that is going to be so huge this year because and it just kind of goes back to what we've all been saying is that watching where these guys develop, watching if some of the bats like Ty Pete or something that can make a step up or whatever the case would be. And then, 6 draft picks in the first, 82, 85 picks in the draft. If they nail this draft, you're looking at a fairly quick turnaround because you're looking at hopefully at least one guy that's like a Weatherholt or a Doyle that's going to be here in 2027, maybe late 2027, assuming there is a 2027.
Yeah, that's no kidding.
We may be looking at some different storylines next year. I.e., what are guys doing in their extended offseason? Yeah, as far as that
goes. Talking about couponing. What did you guys do last week?
I think my MILB app may get worn out because you're right, Jonathan. When you go to look at these box scores, it's going to be every single night there's going to be a guy somewhere in the minors that's pitching that we really care about. And that is, again, I don't know if that's going to be super entertaining to the entire fan base, but for the real sickos, guys, there's going to be a smorgasbord of stuff to look at all the time.
Yeah. And the thing I was going to add to yours, Daniel, that I think is probably in my eye, the top thing I'm watching this season is that right there is when you look at this, last year I would look through the box scores and it's like, did Matthews pitch today? No, that's in a couple days. Matt, to your point, it's going to be every day there's going to be somebody out there like, oh, Fajardo threw 6 innings and had 9 Ks. It's like, I'm going to be over there like, let's bump him up. Let's bump him up, right? So that is going to be such a relief to look at that if we're getting clubbed at the major league level. And this is the thing I've said multiple times on the show is that we actually have the developmental team to help these guys.
Mm.
Like I saw something the other day that John Jay and Descalso were at the same station in spring training for the first time since they've joined because they have enough coaches where they can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Where in prior years, they had to be stretched to other areas. That just seems bananas to me, and it makes me feel so much better now that all of these guys we're talking about and all the talent we're going to add in the draft, there seems to be a ready-made system to produce talent. Now we need to see the production of that, so I think you're nailing it on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's really, really interesting to see how this has developed over the last 2 or 3 years. And it is Chaim Bloom coming in with a plan, coming in with an idea and selling the DeWitts on it. And that wasn't a hard sell because that is kind of the DeWitts history, right? The big, the really good runs of the Cardinals have been kind of from the people that have come from the minor leagues. But to get back to that, you got to tear it down. But when you get it going, hopefully you're looking at another 20 years of really good Cardinal baseball.
Yeah.
I'm trying to just, sip my settle down juice over here. But when you start thinking about like all of these prospects, and granted right now the majority of them are pitching that we're excited about, and this revamped prospect development team, it's hard not to let your mind kind of get away and just start running and thinking like, are we going to develop so many good I don't even know if I should say this out loud, but are we going to develop so many good pitchers that we're going to be trading from this stable of arms to augment that bat kind of stuff down the line?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's possible, right?
Yeah.
That feels like a really good place to end this segment with Daniel on the highest high you can think of, that we are going to have so many pitchers, we can just trade from them endlessly, get a bunch of talent, and continue this on. So, Daniel, big thanks, man, for coming on, being one of our first guests here, let alone a huge Star Wars fan. It just felt like this was ordained from above that you would be here. So before we let you go, though, Daniel, where can our listeners find your work?
Well, of course, I'm, pretty much anything I do, you can find a link on Twitter at C70 or Blue Sky at C70, and Substack, cardinal70.substack.com, right over there, occasionally here and there. And then meet me at Usual, Gateway to Baseball Heaven, and, you're at way too many places, basically.
I love it. That was going to say, just look C70 on Google and you'll see something.
Probably.
All right. Well, when we come back, we are going to move into our Black History Month segment.
All right. And we're back. Jonathan, why don't you take us through what I believe is our last Black History Month Cardinal?
Yes. I figured I would close this out with a bit of a bang here. We're going to talk about Curt Flood. Curt Flood is I was going to say a Weller-known name, but that doesn't make sense. Right? Folks know who Curt Flood is. I think if you said it, you would understand at least like the name recognition. Oh, I've heard of Curt Flood. Well, he was born in 1938 in Houston, Texas, and he became the everyday center fielder for the Cardinals from 1958 to 1969. And this man was elite from that time frame. Okay. He was a 3-time All-Star, 7 Gold Gloves, a cornerstone for us during our 1964 and 1967 World Series teams, which I believe one of those years we beat the Red Sox. Woo-woo, right? We love to hear that.
Yes, we do.
He put up seasons in the mid to 4 to 5 WAR ranges consistently, which we love to see that, including a 5.8 WAR season in 1963. And this is kind of an amazing stat. In 1964, he tied Roberto Clemente for the league lead in hits with 211. And anytime you are in the same sentence as Roberto Clemente, you have to feel pretty good about yourself. In 1966, he did not commit a single error in the outfield. Interesting tidbit. He was always around the game's biggest moments, too. Not just that, but this is a very weird statistic here. So he was a part of Major League Baseball's first ever back-to-back no-hitters. So he struck out for the first no-hitter. Gaylord Perry, I guess, twirled a gem against us. He struck out, game's over. And then the next day, he caught Willie McCovey's fly ball to seal Ray Washburn's no-hitter. So he was the final out in both of them, one good for us, one bad for us. So that doesn't happen every single day. But as impressive as all of that was, that's not the reason why people know Curt Flood. So after the 1969 season, he was traded to the Philadelphia Phillies, and he didn't want to go. He didn't want to leave St. Louis, and more importantly, he didn't want to leave a team that he liked, and he didn't believe a team should be able to control where he went after his contract expired. So that was the reality of the reserve clause at that time, which listeners go look that up, because what it is, and I'll summarize, but it's really interesting to read, is that a player was tied to the organization that they were with indefinitely. Even after their contract expired, they would just continue to be controlled after. Just like in this, his contract expired and he was still traded to the Phillies. Well, that doesn't seem quite right. So Flood wrote directly to baseball commissioner, again, awesome name, Bowie Kuhn, asking to be treated as a free agent because his contract expired. He was denied, so he took a step that no player had ever taken before, and he challenged all of Major League Baseball's labor structure to the U.S. Supreme Court. So he filed a case to the U.S. Supreme Court in 1972, but they lost. The court leaned on a precedence from decades earlier and upheld the labor system, and the cost to him personally was enormous because he was blackballed from the sport, and he never really played another meaningful Major League Baseball inning again. He played a little bit for, I think, the Washington team after this, but nothing really, anything crazy. Teammates later said, Bob Gibson, one of them, said that he received death threats every day of this. So think about that. From 1969 to 1972 is multiple years, 3 years. And he wasn't playing, and he was trying to fight this. So every day he was just getting berated by people who thought that he was trying to destroy this, let alone, if we remember here, during our Black History Month segment, this is at a very tumultuous time in this country. So him standing up and doing this from that perspective is just really wild to think about. Now, what's nice to hear, though, in this story is that he did have support from players around the game. Specifically, white players, too, supported him. And one really famous one by the name of Sandy Koufax said that he deserved enormous credit for standing up what he believed in, knowing that it would cost him financially and professionally, and it absolutely did. And then I talked about Bob Gibson earlier, but he has been credited over his entire life speaking how much this was really important to Curt Flood and how it took a huge toll on him. But for black players especially, Flood's stand meant standing for something deeper. At a time when the civil rights movement was reshaping the country, he challenged a system that controlled the labor and movement of athletes, many of them black, who felt like they didn't have voices. And Curt Flood demanded dignity and autonomy for them and for others. He showed that players did not have to stay quiet, that they could push back, and that they could shape their own influence. So in that influence, it's everywhere. If you think about Curt Flood, we talked about free agency this last offseason. It's because of Curt Flood, modern free agency, salary negotiations, the abilities for player to choose where they want to play. The 10-5 rule, which is literally called the Curt Flood rule, was part of the game because of him. Veterans have a say in trades. Even later, the federal government legislated that baseball basically had its unique protections, legal protections removed, so that they don't have an opportunity to control people like this. So to wrap this up, Curt Flood wasn't just a great center fielder. He was a turning point, a player who risked everything, lost in the moment, and still changed the direction of the sport. Yet every time a player has lost control over the career, you can trace a piece of that freedom back to him, right? So he controlled and has changed so many things for the sport. He has allowed others to actually dictate where their future goes. And I think that that's something that we can look to Curt Flood and think, wow, a Cardinals player really did change that much.
So Curt Flood is responsible for LeBron's decision. That's what you're saying. No. I don't mean to make light of his career at all, because you're right, Jonathan. This is just something that we take for granted as fans of sports, that there's movement, that there's player choice within a set of rules. And so I don't know. I mean, everybody has sung the praises of Curt Flood, but I just don't know how you can undersell what he was and what he did. And then on top of that, to not just be, an also-ran kind of player, but a borderline Hall of Fame player just on his own right without the free agency stuff that is a monumental life, not just in baseball, but in sports.
Yeah. And the free agency part of it is something that I think as fans, we don't give full credit for. It's like when we hear, oh, this team, I can't believe this player didn't sign with our organization. That's the whole point of the free agency, is that it does come down to the player choice. Like, if they didn't want to go there, there's no reason that you should be mad at your team that they didn't sign them. Like, maybe they tried, but there's just no interest. And that's what is super important about it, is why should that not be a thing? Why would you not have the ability to do that, to choose where you're going to play, especially with the way that, that the people are making money off of you. You got to be able to choose your brand and sell yourself. And, you want to go to what's going to be able to being the most success to you. And it's interesting how that creates the arbitration process too, where then we hear how teams like kind of berate these players, even though they want to keep them around. I mean, that's something that on the business side of it, that then gets brought into that free agency where, you got to bring up that other stuff as well, when you're talking about that freedom of choice. And that's something that Curt Flood, he created.
It is. The moral of the story for the 2026 Cardinals out of all this is, Nolan Arenado, thank you for choosing the Arizona Diamondbacks. And thank you, listeners, for choosing us and hanging out with us here on the Redbird Rundown. We are your go-to source for all things St. Louis Cardinals. Subscribe, rate, and review the show. It really helps us grow. If you want to follow us on social media, we're on all of them. Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. All the videos and highlights, the hits will keep coming. Keep those rally caps on and